You know, the 2008 financial crash. They bailed out the banks, obviously, because they bailed out the banks. And but the thing is, somebody, I forget who it was now, and they were asking somebody at the very top, well, if it cost you X amount of billions to bail out the banks, why wouldn't you just bail out? And it was because of the obviously subprime mortgages. Why wouldn't you just bail out the people who couldn't pay their mortgages? That would be a hell of a lot less. The banks would get their money, and nothing would crash, and it would cost less. And the guy came back with, the answer he came back was, well, because of moral hazard. Because if you bail out the house owners who can't afford to pay their houses, the ones who took the mortgages out, then you're incentivizing them not paying their mortgage in the future. To which I sit there and go, well, aren't you incentivizing the banks to do the same thing again if you bailed them out and nobody saw any consequences in the past? Isn't that a greater moral hazard? Of which, there's crickets then, because you've brought up a situation, you brought up a question that they have no answer for.
No, and now what would they say? Well, now they've actually incentivized people to take to the streets, haven't they?
Yes,
Because especially in America, but they're on the point of mass homelessness with mass evictions. No money. We're talking, they're expecting hunger to be a real problem. People haven't got the income, they don't have the work, and so where's the incentive for them not to run riot? Basically, where's
there
the
is none.
incentive not to protest, not to, um, you
There
know,
is none, and I
mm,
find it interesting that they are they're demonising these for instance, the Black Lives Matter, the protesters, the peaceful protesters, they're demonising them. And almost every instance of police violence I've seen, there's been quite a lot of them over the last month or two in America. Almost every instance has been against peaceful protesters or people in protesters. No violence towards the people who were throwing bricks through windows in the central square and looting all the businesses there. The police seem to be just. I've seen one video of the police actually putting bricks out on the
yeah,
corner pavement.
yeah, I've seen some.
They inciting the looters, so then the cameras can point and they can propagandise. The people and saying, "Oh, look at these looters, isn't it bad?" And
But yeah, I
if
agree. I've only seen pretty much peaceful protests. And there was one a few weeks ago. I can't remember where it was, and it was peaceful protesters carrying placards, Black Lives Matter, and they were walking alongside. It was in a southern state. I wish I could remember where it was, but it was a whole bunch of white white people that were anti sort of counter protesters,
mhm.
and they were lined up and they were all armed, they all had guns, and at the very end was a policeman with a gun, and he was effectively standing in line with a bunch of white people holding guns with black protesters, black and white protesters. And you think, just imagine if that was reversed,
I
if
know.
that was a bunch, if the people were holding guns were black.
If the
That's
people holding
amazing.
guns were black, you would see police. You would see gun reform in America immediately if that happened.
It's
I
the same
imagine.
within the again, I can't remember off the top of my head where it was, but they've had protesters in courthouses in states
Yeah, that was
armed,
in.
and they've allowed them in.
Yeah, it was the
They've
state
allowed people
capital, and
in.
I remember there's an iconic photo of them screaming in the police faces, and the police are just standing there. And then you've got, on the other side of the coin, you've got peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters talking to the police and saying we love you, and they're getting arrested and seven bells kicked out of them. It's I've got a real bugbear with America at the moment. I have, Nina, because I think it's where it's where all the bad things in the world are it's like the epicenter of where all the worst things are coming from. With regards, especially their foreign policy, it's awful, and obviously I've got a bugbear about us following them in. I've got theories as to why that is, and they're all terrible. Um,
But I have this sense, and it's the same here. If that there are people ready to, there are people who are organised. There are people who would be, who are good leaders. but they just don't have that platform, you know, or they just don't aren't given a voice, or you're not going to be given a voice. You've got to take it. You've got to take the platform, haven't you? You've got to
Yeah, you've just got to.
demand to have your voice heard. No one's going to give that to you. And it's the same here. Or any real opposition is shut down, is slandered, or
Yeah,
censored.
you only need to look at the way they've. I mean, they weaponized racism over in America. They weaponized the Me Too movement. So they weaponized sexual assault. They weaponized rape in America. You know, let's face it. They went after Trump for what he said about grabbing them by the pussy. But then you got Joe Biden, who has literal accusations of rape against him from
Yeah,
staffers, and they were quiet. And it's like, well, you said believe all women. Believe all women apart from those who accused Joe Biden or accused that. So that blew that whole movement apart.